All right, and we're live. Hello to anyone who is still up. I'm John Henry, and welcome to a valued conversation. I meant to do this a whole hell of a lot earlier, but time gets away from you. Not to mention, when you run into some ignorance, you happen to want to do a little bit of extra research so you can do something to prove that there is falsehood floating in the atmosphere. And speaking of falsehoods and everything else you can think of right about now, um, we just had a 2024 presidential election. And yes, Donald Trump has won. Somehow a felon has gotten into the White House. And his challenger was told by everybody that she was not black. Look, black people, sometimes we just do the dumbest, forgive my language, the dumbest shit. Nothing is worse than misinformation, especially when it's about our own, from our own. Now, it could be anybody, it could be anyone, but the fact that a black woman is told that she is not black because you had another black woman who I will call right now the black Trojan horse, Candace Owens. She literally has gotten black people to believe that a black man, all right, Kamala Harris's father, is a white Irishman. Black people have never taken the moment to actually look at her lineage to verify that this is easily proven to be false. But once you put it out there and people who are not interested in finding the truth but have their own narratives that they will follow from someone they believe is telling the truth, they go with it. And that's what is really pissing me the hell off when I think about it. Now, it's bad enough that we have a felon who is the commander-in-chief, but we also have misinformation that kept the possibility of someone who could have ensured democracy for the next generations to come. Lies kept her out of the White House. Was there a better choice between the two of them? No, not really. Sure, you had Jill Stein and Cornel West running, but they weren't really expected to do anything that would be significant. There was just no chance, really. But be that as it may, I will go ahead and say right now, Donald Trump is my president. Now, albeit he is my rape convicted, insurrection supporting, and convicted as well, classified record stealing president. And everything that I've just said is true to the fact. So if anyone is upset about it, hey, deal with it. All right. Rather than we go on about that, let's go ahead and jump into a few things, all right? All right, so let's cut over here. So the first thing that I want to make known here is that Jamaican is a nationality. Now, I've been hearing folks for the last 2 or 3 months talking about Kamala isn't even black. Jamaican isn't a nationality. Yes, it is. Think about if you are an American born in America. What do they call you? Obviously, you're still going to be an American, but to believe that someone is not Jamaican because you've been told Jamaican is not a nationality, that's the type of foolery that just reflects bad on us. Here, let's step back one here. Kamala Harris has long identified as black, contrary to Trump claim. And this is the truth. She has always stated that she's been a black woman. However, it took one stop by Trump at the black journalist gathering back in August to make the statement that, oh, now all of a sudden she's black. There was no truth in this, but because of the fact that no one was ready to combat this, the lie has been perpetuated. Let's start right here. Similar posts were fact-checked by Reuters in 2020 when she became the first black and Asian American woman to serve in the second highest office in the country. This and other misinformation about Harris has resurfaced since she lost her White House campaign in July. So Trump went through a few other areas making the same false claim. Now, I've got a lot of information to get through here, so let's just do this. Let's go ahead and get down to the verdict here. And bottom line here is that false. Kamala Harris is of Indian and Jamaican heritage and has long self-identified as both Black and South Asian American. Now, this is not the only article that will state this information. Matter of fact, I've got a few more here. So if we actually go over to Snopes, so before we go to Snopes, let me make sure I haven't missed something. Okay, good. So if we go over to Snopes, anyone who keeps up with information to make sure that what they say is accurate, you can gather that information here from the Snopes website. Harris didn't lie about her Black grandparents. However, if you allow someone to tell a lie for you, and I said before, oops, pardon me for a second. Got an issue with my YouTube studio. Here, just a moment, folks. I've got to restart something in the background here. Smooth it out, smooth it out. Let's close that. All right, let's keep trying this. It seems like I'm losing some bandwidth someplace. All right, so let's try to pick this back up. So, as I was saying before, Candace Owens had a lot to do with this lie about her not being Black. I'm only prodding the narrative here, conspiracy theorist Candace Owens claimed, because I'm going to need proof that she's Black. Yo, so let's go ahead and scoot this down here a little bit and let's read a little bit further into this. So here was the claim. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris published photos of herself with a woman she claimed was her paternal grandmother who died 4 years before Harris was born. And this is false, mainly because of the fact the woman that Candace Owens was so quick to track down, who happened to have the same first name as Kamala's paternal grandmother, that woman died in 1960. But there was a distinct difference. The woman that she was referencing had a different last name, but the same first name. So if you want to take a second here, this is the lie that she was pushing. Now, the foolish thing here is that the birth and death certificates that she found, well, I think the birth one may have been accurate, but the death was inaccurate because the woman who died in 1960, her name was Beryl Christie, whereas you can see Kamala Harris's grandmother's last name was Beryl Finnegan. So as a result, the picture that she was sharing had nothing to do, or let me put it this way, the death certificate information that she was showing, here's the birth by the way, this is the actual birth date of Kamala Harris's paternal grandmother, but the death certificate was someone else. Here you can see 1960, it looks like it was the 16th of July, but you see the name Beryl, but Christie was the name of the woman who died in 1960, not the Beryl Finnegan, who was actually Kamala Harris's grandmother. Now, Candace even went through a whole deal where she had supposed evidence stating that she had found out that Kamala Harris was lying. But thankfully, Snopes, being the good investigators they are, happened to follow back and do the cross-checking that one would expect in order to be accurate, and found out again the woman that died was not Harris's grandmother. Now, here's something else to go along with the lie that's being told about her. It's been stated that her father, Donald Harris, is a white Irishman. Again, that is nowhere near the truth. Her father is black. All right? That's just the fact. Her father is black. And if you were to trace the lineage back to his mother, Kamala's grandmother, Beryl, it turns out that her father, Patrick A. Finnegan, was Irish and black. He was half black, half white, which means that Patrick A. Finnegan's father, Patrick Sr., was the actual white Irishman everyone is referring to. So what I'm going to do is just speed ahead to the bottom here. By the way, this is the death certificate of Kamala Harris's actual grandmother, which was Beryl Finnegan. So this is the picture that Candace Owens was trying to say was fraudulent. When in actuality, yes, this was her actual grandmother. This is a visit, I believe, in Jamaica in 1995. This is Beryl Finnegan, not Beryl Christie. Beryl Christie is the woman who died in 1960. Now, it also goes in to speak of how strange it was for Candace Owens to link information together the way she did. When she couldn't figure out what was what, she went ahead and created a narrative so it would give her the appearance of propriety, that she had actually figured it all out. She was wrong. Wrong as shit, if you excuse me from saying so. Now, in this picture, this is Kamala Harris's grandfather, which is Donald Harris's father. So at this point in time, it's believed that her grandfather and her grandmother were already separated. I don't know if that's divorced or not, but they were separated. So there's a lot of information to find here, but let me just go here to the bottom line. The Patrick Finnegan who fathered Beryl Finnegan is generally accepted to be Patrick Alphonsus Finnegan, one of several mixed-race children of Patrick Finnegan, the immigrant, as in the original Irishman. So if you want to get a quick blow-by-blow of this, there's a genealogist who actually went back and did the math. McNiff believes that Patrick A. Finnegan, who married Ora Allen, aka Miss Iris, which is Kamala Harris's great-great-grandmother in 1908, was the mixed-race son of a man called Patrick Finnegan from Ireland. As I said before, the actual white Irish guy everybody's trying to say is Kamala's father. No, Patrick Finnegan is Kamala Harris's great-great-grandfather. Miss Iris and Patrick A., which is Patrick Finnegan's son, Patrick A. Finnegan being the half-black, half-white son of Patrick Finnegan, were the parents of Donald Harris's mother, Beryl. Real simple if you take the time to go through that. Now, to add to this, there were multiple other stories that you could go to cross-check and cross-reference, which is what I actually did, which is why I'm up so damn late, because I want to be accurate about certain things. Let me scroll down here real fast. Oh, by the way, this is a newspaper that you can find here in the States, the Irish Echo, and it says it's the oldest Irish American newspaper in the U.S., established in 1928. Now, this is a picture of Kamala Harris's great great grandmother, and she was known as Miss Chrissy, but she was born as Christina Brown. Now, there's also another story that goes along with this. What's also known here is that there were slave owners in Kamala Harris's family, but what people don't tell you is that it was 4 generations removed. So from Miss Christina Brown here, those slave owners were 2 generations from her. So it was Miss Brown's here, her great great grandfather, who was a slave owner. Miss Brown here herself was the daughter of, I believe, enslaved Jamaicans. Now, this is Kamala Harris sitting on the lap of her great grandmother, Miss Iris. And as I mentioned before, Miss Iris was married to Patrick A. Finnegan, who was the half black, half white son of Patrick Finnegan Sr., the actual white Irish guy who immigrated from Ireland. So again, if you want all this information, all you have to do is look for it. It's here, people. But I got onto pulling this thread based off of some, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, some misinformation I came across when I stopped into, I believe it was Medium Man's live feed. Now, Medium Man is all about the facts. That's what I like about the young brother. He makes sure that if there's anything he presents up there, he shows you where it came from and he walks you through it till all the numbers match up. What I happen to have noticed inside his chat was a conversation. I don't know if it started in Medium Man directly from the panel or if it was inside the chat, but I noticed someone had said that Kamala Harris was not black. And of course, if misinformation is not checked, it runs amok. I had a quick conversation back and forth with someone about this, to which they said, oh, you know, she's not black. If a Chinese guy is born in Jamaica, does that make him Jamaican? Actually, yes. He would be a Chinese person, or should I say a Jamaican person of Chinese descent. But yes, he would still be Jamaican, but just of Chinese descent. Think about it. If you're born in America, once again, does that not make you an American? If you were Hispanic and born in America, you would be Hispanic American. If you were German, you would be German American or American of German heritage. It's this type of foolery from us black folks that we have got to stop. Matter of fact, I even found another piece of information to share. And it goes into state here, Kamala Harris is of Jamaican descent on her paternal side and of Indian descent on her maternal side. There's no reason for anyone to ever believe that she is not black. Now here we go here where it talked about how they claimed that there were slave owners in her family. Here we go. Yes, on her great great grandmother's side. So supposedly, 2 generations up from her, from Kamala, that would be great 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 great. People were saying that, oh, there's slave owners in her family. Now Snopes did do a check here, and they rated this claim as unproven because they still had to do further research. But if you go on to a few other sites, there is information again attempting to link her to having slave owners in her family. But if that was the case, it had nothing to do with her because that is 4 generations out. But nonetheless, this is something that people have attempted. But best you find out where you can go to find this information in order to combat this foolery if you happen to find yourself faced with it. Now, this is more about Kamala Harris than I was ever looking to know regarding her heritage, but I know exactly where to go and how to answer if the question ever pops up. And now to some of you, if you happen to be watching this during the replay. All right, I believe we can call it quit on the Kamala deal. So let's get down to the real nitty gritty here. So Kamala Harris supposedly is a sore loser. So the question here is, why should she be called a sore loser? And that's because she didn't concede the race directly to Donald Trump on election night. Yes, that is what people are saying. She's a sore loser because she did not concede right away. She waited until the next afternoon to do so. We'll talk about sore loser here in a moment. All right, how about we talk about insurrection? All right, so what is the definition? Well, right here, a violent uprising against an authority or government. Now, would you believe that to this day, 4 years later, there are still people, both black and white, who say, oh, that wasn't an insurrection? I've asked the question, why would it not be an insurrection? And the answer I get is, because there were no guns and there was no blood. I mean, the absolute foolery that people would twist themselves into knots just to be right. The fact of the matter is that this was a violent uprising. All right, there was an uprising, which you all saw, and there was violence, which was seen as well. Enough said, right? Okay, the definition of foment. Donald Trump fomented insurrection. The definition, to instigate or stir up. And to read further, an undesirable or violent sentiment or course of action. Donald Trump incited an insurrection. Now again, this goes back to the statement that Donald Trump is a sore loser versus Kamala Harris being a sore loser. So I'd ask you right now, I would ask you right now, honestly, who do you think is more of a sore loser? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Just give it a thought here, give it some thought. Who is really a sore loser? I'll tell you what. Let me show you what a sore loser does when he loses.
But this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
5 to 50 be advised, Capitol Police 1 advised they're trying to breach and get to the Capitol.
We have a breach of the Capitol! Breach of the Capitol! We need to hold the doors of the Capitol.
By the way, closed caption doesn't always get it right. So when you saw open, what he was saying was that we need to hold, not close, not open, but we need to hold.
I need court support. We lost the line. We lost the line. All we need is get back. All we need is get back.
He's basically saying they've lost the line. So as we see the nice man pointing everyone through the building, I'd like to point out here, just in case everyone has forgotten, Donald Trump did call the sitting vice president stupid. Now keep in mind, she's graduated from Howard with a bachelor's. She graduated from Hastings, I believe, with her law degree. She did 2 terms as a DA in San Francisco, and I think she was also 2 terms as Attorney General for California, as well as being a senator, to include also the vice president. So she is far from stupid. Now, you saw them going into Nancy Pelosi's chambers. Recall also that Donald Trump did call Nancy Pelosi a bitch. Again, this is the sitting or the incoming president. Let's continue. That's some words from Donald Trump.
These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Whew, that's the type of love we can all do without, right? Remember that Trump also said that it was a giant love fest, that love was everywhere. People were holding hands, singing Kumbaya, some other shit. No, that was not the case. That was far from the case. We had violence, all right, folks? We know for a fact that there was violence, but for whatever reason, Donald Trump chose not to tell the truth about that. Instead, tried to gloss it over. Even folks in the chamber tried to say, or should I say the Republicans tried to say that, oh, it was just a field trip, or the police invited everyone in. Like, who are we going to believe? Them or our lying eyes? But there was still more information that was that was brought out here. And it was done by the Jan 6 meetings, if everyone recalls. There was a series of meetings that actually took it upon themselves to produce and provide information about the insurrection. Let's do this. All right, got to key it up. Let's continue on here.
It's no coincidence then that President Trump finally gave in and went out to the Rose Garden at 4:03. His staff had prepared a script for him to read, but he refused to use it. As you can see on the screen, you can see the script is stamped "President has seen." The script said, quote, "I'm asking you to leave the capital region now and go home in a peaceful way." The president was urged to stick to this script, but he spoke off the cuff. Eric Hirschman and Nick Luna went with the president to film the message in the Rose Garden. Let's hear what they had to say and see the never-before-seen raw footage of the president recording this video message.
Ultimately, these remarks that we're looking at here in Exhibit 25 were not the remarks that the president delivered in the Rose Garden. Do you know why the president decided not to use these?
I don't know, sir. No, I do not know why.
Did the president use any written remarks to your knowledge, or did he just go off the cuff?
To my knowledge, it was off the cuff, sir.
Good, Chase?
Yep.
When you're ready, sir. Yep, you'll be right behind me.
You tell me when.
When you're ready, sir.
Who's behind me?
Okay. He's gone around. Clear. We're all clear now.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had a election. Let me see. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great.
Just had finished filming the video, and I think he was basically retiring for the day.
Was there any discussion about the president releasing a second video that day?
Not that I recall. When he finished his video, I think everyone was like, day's over. People were pretty drained.
Were pretty what?
Drained.
But we say day over, there were still people in the Capitol at that point, weren't there?
There were people in the Capitol, but I believe by this stage, law enforcement, and I'd have to go back and look, but I believe law enforcement was either there or moving in or going to take charge. And I just tell you, people were emotionally drained by the time that videotape was done.
Emotionally drained at the White House? Here's what was happening at the same time at the Capitol. We warned the audience that this clip also contains strong language and violence.
Hey, keep pushing, don't lose the momentum.
There's another officer unconscious. The sheriff.
Now keep in mind, Donald Trump said this was a gathering of love. There was peace. There were people there just visiting. But yet we have, as you heard, another officer knocked unconscious. All right, again, this is a violent uprising. That is what an insurrection is. Guns, no guns, blood, no blood.
Everybody, we need gas masks. We need weapons. We need strong, angry patriots to help our boys. They don't want to leave.
Again, peaceful, right? We need weapons. We need gas masks. We need strong, angry patriots. All right, I'm sure you get the point here, folks. So the insurrection was violent. But again, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? That's what the entire presentation was from the outgoing Trump administration. You saw it with your own eyes, right? Nothing that I pulled out of my back pockets. So with that being said, we've seen the definition of insurrection. We've seen foment, which is one who would incite insurrection. And we've actually seen the videos of insurrection. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is going to be the trial where Donald Trump was found guilty of insurrection. Yes, for those folks who still do not know or believe, there was a trial the 15th of November 2023, well, Donald Trump was found to have engaged in insurrection. But again, don't let me say anything about it because obviously I'm a liar if I bring this up on any of the panels. Take a look for yourself. Clearly stated. And notice, this is not an opinion piece or anything like that. This information is coming directly from NPR News. This is a reputable source of information. A Colorado judge finds Trump engaged in insurrection, but keeps him on the ballot. Now, this is that issue that was never resolved, that if done properly and if actually followed to the law and pushed through, Trump would not be president-elect right now. But let's go ahead and get a little bit further into this. Now, the person presiding over this was a Judge Sarah B. Wallace. So let's just hit some of the high points here, because if anyone wants to read anything about this article, you can find it here if you just do a Google search. A Colorado judge on Friday, and again, this was back in 2023, November. So I believe it was on the 15th where the actual case was. A Colorado judge on Friday found that former President Donald Trump engaged in insurrection during the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, but rejected an effort to keep him off the state's primary ballot because it's unclear whether a Civil War era constitutional amendment barring insurrectionists from public office applies to the presidency. applies to the presidency. So what it came down to is that when you look at the insurrection clause, there's a statement talking about who qualifies as being officers of the United States. So we'll get to that in just a moment. All right, so basically there have been challenges regarding how the statement of officer of the United States needed to be interpreted. Now, the lawyers for Trump were stating that Trump was not an elector of sorts or any type of officer who would elect someone to the presidency. He was the president. Therefore, him being the president means that he is not considered an officer of the U.S. And because there was nothing specifically saying that the president had engaged in insurrection, or if a president had engaged in insurrection, it was their belief that Trump should not be held from being on the ballot. Now, going into this once more, in her decision, Wallace said she found that Trump did, in fact, engage in insurrection on Jan 6 and rejected his attorney's arguments that he was simply, engaging in free speech. Wow. Normally, that would be enough to disqualify him under Section 3, but she said she couldn't do so for a presidential candidate. So Trump was getting a walk everywhere around the board. So he had committed insurrection almost 2 years prior and had still not been arrested, walking around free. Even in a trial that determined that he was guilty of that, he was still not apprehended. But at the same time, he was also not removed from the ballot at that particular point in time. So as I said before, the problem here was how to interpret the insurrection clause. Here we go. And that is Section 3. Section 3 does not specifically refer to the presidency as it does members of the U.S. Senate or House of Representatives. Instead, the clause refers to elector of president and vice president, along with civil and military offices. Now, going further in here, we can read where it says, part of the court's decision is its reluctance to embrace an interpretation which would disqualify a presidential candidate without a clear, unmistakable indication that such is the intent of Section 3. So because of her narrow focus of not saying something, saying if the president does do this or does not do this, it was in her judgment to say that Donald Trump could remain on the ballot. Now, no matter how you looked at it, the court did find that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. So there was at least some happiness that justice was served to a degree. But what people really wanted was for him to not be allowed to participate in the upcoming 2024 election. So let's go ahead and just leave it right here before we move into our next topic here. Legal experts said it was significant that Wallace found Trump had engaged in insurrection. She wrote that she agreed with the petitioner's claim that he incited the attack. All right, so that's one way to view this, that again, Trump was guilty of insurrection. Now, as we move back on here, let's where are we? Let's take a look at the 14th Amendment itself. Now, as I said before, the whole issue was revolving around what exactly is constituted as being an officer of the United States. Okay, here we go. Section 3, disqualification from holding office. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath because remember, the president does take an oath during the inaugurational event, taking an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States. I want you to keep this in mind here in a minute, because a year prior to the insurrection, Trump pulled a hustle as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. So essentially, the argument is coming around the fact of, is or is not the president and vice president considered to be officers of the United States? Well, that answer is yes, because a month later, the decision that was made to keep Trump on the ballot was overturned by the Colorado Supreme Court, that said yes, the president and the vice president are considered officers of the United States. Now let's look a little bit further into the folks who represented Trump. You had a Josh Blackman and a Seth Barrett Tillman. Now, both of them had stated that no, absolutely not. The president at the time was not an officer of the United States. So this is just information that was briefly covered in the last article, going into the particular clauses of what was argued in favor of Trump. Now, ultimately, what was stated here in the end, the whole act of saying that he engaged in insurrection or rebellion, as stated by his lawyers, this resolution assumed that the president is an officer of the United States, to which they said, we disagree. There is some good reason to think the president is not an officer of the United States. President Trump, who swore only one constitutional oath, does not fall within Section 3's jurisdictional element. Therefore, he cannot be disqualified pursuant to this provision. All right, so this went round and round for a couple of weeks until, as I said before, the Colorado Supreme Court stepped in. All right, let's take a look at this. Speaking of, in December 2023, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that the U.S. president is an officer of the United States as pertains to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, reversing a November 2023 contrary ruling by a Colorado district judge. Now, I want to say I had a little bit more information to go with this. So when you read and take a look at the officer of the United States, there is an area where it talks about this regarding the presidency. Here we go. And once again, this talks about how the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that the U.S. president is an officer of the United States as pertains to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, reversing a November 2023 contrary ruling by a Colorado district court. Now, if we go down here, I'm going to point something out interesting here. So basically, we've got it wrapped up that says that yes, Trump was an officer of the United States during the time that he committed insurrection. Some would also say treason, but we'll just leave the treason word out for right now. But what I do want to say is that Trump, again, used a year prior to the insurrection a statute pertaining to being an officer of the United States to get out of a lawsuit. I believe this is that statute right here. Do I have this available? Do I? Yes, I do. All right, so the lawsuit was between Donald Trump's hotel the Pennsylvania Avenue Hotel, and the Cork Wine Bar. Now, this was a restaurant, as it says here, on the edge of the District of Columbia's U Street corridor. So there was competition between the two places, to which the Cork Wine Bar believed that it was unfair competition, right? Well, as I said before, in order to use this statute, you have to be considered an officer of the court. And that's exactly what Donald Trump's lawyers did. They more or less stated that he was an officer of the United States. And because of that, he was able to remove the court case from its current venue to a federal court. And then upon doing so, he was able to dismiss the case. The district court denied Cork's motion to remand the case, then dismissed its complaint for failure to state a claim. How about that for some buttery bullshit? In one instance, a year prior, Trump used the claim of being a federal or being an officer of the United States to dismiss a lawsuit, but when he was caught for insurrection, all of a sudden he wasn't considered to be an officer of the United States. Now, fast forward up to now where he has won the election, the Supreme Court of the United States, actual SCOTUS, they got involved and said that there was nothing that gave any type of, for lack of a better expression, there was nothing that properly described on how someone would be removed from being a candidate for the presidency. And all 9 justices agreed on that. So because of all 9 justices feeling that there was no type of system or some type of documentation or process or procedure on how to remove someone from being a candidate for the presidency, they decided to say, well, this is more for delineation, but right now he can stay. Hence, bringing us where we are right now. I say again, isn't that some buttery BS? By the way, if anyone wants to know the exact statute that Donald Trump used to read more into it, you can go to Cornell Law or law.cornell.edu and you can read up on that. Rather than me sit here and go through this, I'm just going to make sure that you know where you can go to find that information. All right, is everybody still with me? I know it's a little bit late, but it appears that I've got my second win, and like I said, I'm already up, so let's just keep rolling with this. All right, now it's time for the good stuff. Now, as I said before, there are people who argued to death when I made a statement on a panel a couple of days ago that Donald Trump was guilty of insurrection and rape, or should I say, he was found to have committed insurrection and was found in a court of law of transgressing against E. Jean Carroll, aka rape. Now, this doesn't sit well with your average run-of-the-mill Trump supporter, because remember, where these folks get their information from, it is not going to provide any information that is negative towards Donald Trump. But if it is negative, there's always somebody sitting by ready with spin to make sure that the information does not do as much damage or does no damage at all. That's pretty much the way things have worked, because anyone sitting across the table from Donald Trump, his team knows that Donald Trump is not going to be better than that person. So what they need to do is make that person look worse than him in order for them to secure the win that they need, depending upon the situation. All right, so let's go ahead and go forward. So as I said, yes, Donald Trump was found to have committed rape, and he was guilty of the crime. Now, and so being guilty of the crime, that means that, yes, their words, not mine, yes, Donald Trump is a rapist. And you can see right here, there's something below the tagline. A judge rejected Trump's semantic attempt to throw out the case. Ooh, that's slow scroll, right? All right, so as you can see here, I don't need to keep saying this word, but he was found liable for sexual abuse, battery, and defamation. Or should I say he was trying to request a new trial after he was found liable for sexual abuse, battery, and defamation. It was clearly rejected. So by trying to avoid accountability, as it states, he allowed himself to now be formally known as a rapist. So here's the deal that he kept trying to throw out on the street here. Trump's team had requested a new trial in the case, arguing that the $5 million in damages he was ordered to pay Carroll was excessive because he was only charged with sexual abuse. The jury had not found that Trump raped Carroll, a talking point Trump's team often parroted. Now, if we go a little bit further, Judge Lewis Kaplan was not having none of that. But Judge Lewis Kaplan called Trump's semantic argument entirely unpersuasive. He clarified that, wait a minute, let's get some highlighting going on. He clarified that the jury found that the former president did indeed rape Carroll based on the common definition of the word. Now, of course, New York had, let's say, a more narrow definition of the word itself. And because of that, a lot of people were trying to, again, like Donald Trump and his lawyers, play semantics. The finding that Ms. Carroll failed to prove that she was raped within the meaning of the New York penal law does not mean that she failed to prove that Mr. Trump raped her, as many people commonly understand the word rape, Kaplan wrote. Now, this is just the nail to go with. Indeed, as the evidence at trial recounted below makes clear, the jury found that Mr. Trump, in fact, did exactly that, rape as commonly understood. Now, everyone who follows news knows George Conway. Okay, he was married to Kellyanne Conway. I'm not sure if they're still married or not. I know they were going through a divorce. But George always has some type of quip to put in here. And we'll go ahead and roll out of this article with this information. A United States district judge has now formally held in a lengthy written opinion that is perfectly appropriate and indeed entirely accurate to call a certain former president of the United States a rapist, noted George Conway, lawyer and husband to former Trump aide Kelly Conway. Well, at the time, he was leading, but as of today, he won. Now, that was not the only article that wrote about this. Or should I say the only news agency that wrote about it. Mother Jones. A federal judge has gone to great lengths to make clear Trump really did rape E. Jean Carroll. And again, this is not puff opinion pieces. Now, this is covering the trial that went down, and this is all fact. District Judge Lewis Kaplan has said it multiple times. Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll in 1996. Kaplan wrote it in May 2023 when he presided over one of the trials against Trump. And he reminded jurors of the rape this week during the latest proceedings in the multi-layered, winding rape and defamation cases brought against Trump by Carroll. You know what? There's nothing else that needs to be said here. As I said before, anyone looking to obtain this information, here it is right here on the screen for you to work with. Close. All right, moving right along. Now, we're all familiar here with the issue that Donald Trump had with his classified records 5-finger discount, right? So we now go into one of his other legal issues, the theft of classified records. Now, the maddening part about this, if you were someone like myself who, while in the military, maintained classified records, you couldn't just fathom how someone can come into the White House. You've got classified information that was there in circulation, being utilized before you probably even decided to run for the presidency. Then all of a sudden you decide that after you leave the office, after you were voted out, after insurrection, you take classified information with you because you say, oh, those are mine. How are you just going to walk into a building that has been up and in practice, running classified information top to bottom, floor to floor, one side of Washington to the other? You're going to take this information with you because you feel it's yours. And then when someone tries to claim it back because they know you've taken it, you tell them you don't have it. And then eventually you say, well, maybe I have some. I'll give you what I know that I possibly have. You give a little bit, not enough. They know it's a lie. They send agents in. They collect more boxes than you actually told them you had. And then come to find out after they leave, you still have boxes that you are caught on video moving around like Tetris, trying to keep it away from them retrieving it because you think it's mine. You think it's some type of, I don't know, just some type of keepsake that you can maintain. What the hell, right? But I digress. Let's go ahead and bring this over. So as you know, just a few months ago, the judge that was drawn to handle the case for Donald Trump has been carrying his golf bags across the greens for him ever since he was charged. Essentially, he got away with it because the case was dismissed, as everybody knows. But look at this. He's got classified on stages. There was classified in bedroom. There was classified in bathrooms. There was classified all over the place. But again, Judge Cannon stalled long enough until I think it was Clarence Thomas happened to make the statement, oh, Jack Smith was appointed illegally to the case. 37 count indictment, including violations of the Espionage Act, which criminalizes unauthorized possession of defense information, and conspiracy to obstruct justice, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. The charges included references to dozens of top secret or secret documents. This is what Donald Trump had in his possession. Now, Biden, on the other hand, he had a few documents in his possession as well. I think they found something out in his garage where he had his Corvette and a few other things. It was in here somewhere, a dog crate that was collapsed, some broken down boxes. But nonetheless, Biden had a few pieces of classified in his possession. Again, nothing to the amount that Trump had, but nonetheless, it is still classified information in an area where it should not be. Matter of fact, if everyone remembers, even Mike Pence had some classified. But what was the difference? The difference was when Pence and Biden realized they had classified, they gave it back. As soon as they realized that they had classified in their possession, they gave it back. So as I said before, you had an investigation that was being done by Jack Smith on Trump. But you also had an investigation that was being done on Biden by an investigator named Robert Hur. Now, Robert Hur's job was to ensure that no matter how... Let me stop. I'm being conspiratorial here. Fact. Robert Hur did his investigation. When he came to the end and filed his paperwork, he stated that whereas Biden was not guilty of intentionally holding on to classified he was a feeble-minded man who wasn't sure about anything. Now, I'm kind of paraphrasing right here, but basically, if he being Biden, was not going to be strung up for having classified, then on the exit, something negative would have to be required. Okay, this is me being a little bit conspiratorial again. But again, all jokes aside, he made sure that there was something negative left on his doorstep. The report says that to a jury, Biden would likely present himself as he did during his interview with our office, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Now keep in mind, this is during an election season. So because of the fact that Trump was being investigated, he was claiming, oh, this is election interference. But think about this. Biden was being investigated also, but you didn't hear Biden talking about election interference. But Trump stayed through the whole ordeal. Oh, this is interference, this is interference. But eventually, Trump's case is thrown out because Jack Smith is supposedly appointed illegally. Which brings me to the question that occurred to me a couple of days ago that nobody else has stated in public, or if they have, I haven't heard it. But before we get to that, just one more thing here. We have another article. Donald Trump showed off all these pop-ups and refused to return classified documents, indictment says. Pretty much what I was stating just a moment ago. So here, this goes into detail about what I stated about him improperly storing classified information. Now, I believe everyone may or may not remember the day the FBI stormed the building. But as I said before, Jack Smith's case has been officially thrown out. I think they're still trying to resuscitate it right now. But being that Trump has now gotten himself into the position of being reelected, who's to say what's going to happen right now? Personally, I think the case should still go forward because a crime is a crime. And a crime of this magnitude should not be brushed off because, oh, he's a sitting president. Therefore, a sitting president by precedence should not be indicted or investigated. Now, I want you to remember this word, precedent. So here we go, back to good old Cornell, law.cornell.edu. Grounds for appointing a special counsel. The Attorney General, or in cases in which the Attorney General is recused, the acting Attorney General will appoint a special counsel when he or she determines that criminal investigation of a person or matter is warranted, and boom, it rattles off into what would warrant the appointing of a special counsel. So, rather than I drag this out, let's just go ahead and get to it. Now, since the use of a special counsel came to be, there have only been 4 presidents who have appointed a special counsel. Grant, Garfield, Roosevelt, and Coolidge. All right, so these are the 4 presidents who have appointed special counsels. So I want to back this up one more time now, right? Work with me on this. Let's just take a second to think this out. Robert Hur investigated Joe Biden. Jack Smith investigated Donald Trump. 2 investigators for 2 presidents who were found to have had classified in their possession leading up to the charge of mishandling classified. One more so than the other, more so being Donald Trump. He was looking at years. All right. So let me ask this question of anyone. How is it that one man appointed by an attorney general was able to finish his investigation, which is Robert Hur, to include write a report that made the sitting president appear to be a feeble-minded man, whereas the other guy, Jack Smith, was not allowed to finish his investigation to the point that it was thrown out altogether. But riddle me this, Batman. How the hell are you going to throw out a case by one of your attorneys by stating that he was illegally appointed when both men were appointed as special counsel by the same damn attorney general? Here, take a look. Merrick Garland appointed both of these guys as special investigators. Jack Smith for Trump, Robert Hur for Biden. But yet Jack Smith is told that he has been illegally appointed to the position, but Robert Hur wasn't. Yet they were both appointed as special counsel by the same attorney general. What type of buttery bullshit is this? I'll leave it right there. Again, this is for anyone who wants to go back and take a look. I provided all the steps. I've walked it down. All you have to do is give it a second, think about it. And remember, they're talking about weaponization. No one is weaponizing anything. But if I were to say what made the difference between the two cases, it was the judge. Definitely, it was the judge that made the difference between the two cases. The one tried, or should I say, that was being overlooked by Jack Smith versus the case being overlooked by Robert Hur. Enough said. Okay, so now winding down. Do you recall where I talked about precedent? Precedent has been something that we've watched the Republican Party under Donald Trump brush aside on more than 11 different occasions. Precedent means absolutely nothing. So therefore, why not end this whole rant of mine on precedent? Now, before I do, let's take in mind here that the precedent that we're going to be talking about is going to revolve around, first and foremost, the Supreme Court, mainly the theft of a Supreme Court pick by former President Obama back in 2016. Long story short, before Barack Obama was able to have his nominee, which was Merrick Garland, appointed and then have a hearing to go to the Supreme Court, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans fabricated some type of precedent stating that the next president should be the one to choose the Supreme Court nominee. All right, not the president who is outgoing, but they wanted to make sure that, the people need to speak. It needs to be the next president who determines that. Where was the statement that he made? Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer even quoted McConnell's 2016 rationale verbatim in a tweet that said Americans should have a voice. So basically what was in the fix here is that McConnell knew that if I hold on to the vote, if everything goes the way that folks were hoping it would, Trump would have the ability to use the stolen pick, and that's exactly what it was, the stolen pick from Obama 11 months prior now. 11 months prior to the 2017 election, Obama's Supreme Court pick was stolen from him. Of course, as soon as Donald Trump won the presidency, he was able to seat Neil Gorsuch. And then after Gorsuch, they were able to seat Matt Kavanaugh. Now, if you recall, right before the 2020 election, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. Now, I want to say it may have been a year prior where Senator Lindsey Graham got up and in front of cameras inside of a courtroom said that they would not fill the seat. If anything were to happen, whether it be Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away, I think that's what he was alluding to, but he stated that the Republicans would not fill the seat. However, Mitch McConnell was standing at a podium going over the question of what happened or what would happen if Ginsburg passed away. And he laughed to himself while taking a drink of water, and he said, well, wait a minute, let me see if I can capture the moment. He was drinking and he went, we're going to fill it. And he laughed to himself and took a sip of whatever he was drinking. We're going to fill it. After saying, for the precedent that he created, that the incoming president should be the person to choose the next justice. All right, so now that we've set the stage here. So again, they created a precedent. Now, after creating this precedent, wait for it. Damn if they didn't go ahead and trample the precedent that they themselves had set. I think it was a week before the 2020 presidential election, they rushed through Amy Coney Barrett to fill Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat. Basically, they shit all over the precedent that they created. Now, keep in mind, they took Obama's choice, which was Merrick Garland, 11 months before the 2017 election, stating the next incoming president should be the person to determine who gets placed on the Supreme Court. But damn if they don't turn around a week before the 2020 election and sit Amy Coney Barrett in the seat. So now that gave Trump 3 Supreme Court picks that he ramrodded in, thereby, as I said, killing the precedent that they supposedly put in place. Ain't that a bitch? All right, now for the last instance that I will speak of precedents being trampled over, Roe versus Wade. So Roe versus Wade has been up for the entirety of my life, and I'm 54 now. So how was Trump and the Republicans able to do this? It was a long game. The first thing they needed to do was to get hold of one justice to start the ball rolling. And that's what was done in 2016 when they, again, took Trump's pick. As soon as Trump was sworn in, they went to work. They got Gorsuch in play, then Kavanaugh, and as I said just a moment ago, a week before the 2020 election, they rushed in Amy Coney Barrett after stating that no one would be seated, breaking their own precedent that they created. All right, so that's 2 precedents down. And of course, now that they have their 3rd Supreme Court justice, there was this secret, what do they call it? Secret, not secret ballot or secret draw, but whatever they were doing in the background. Somebody told on them, said, hey, these guys are trying to overturn Roe versus Wade. Well, there was no trying to it. They actually did, but they had to play the long game in order to do that. And that's what was done. Precedent trampled over. So now to finish this all out, I want you to look at this nonsense coming from Bill Barr, the one person who did the most to aid Trump. Barr is saying that prosecutors should do the right thing and drop all the cases against Trump. And why is he saying that? Because of the precedents that a sitting president should not be indicted. What the F? I have just given a strong, I'm not even going to bother reading the article. You can go to the Hill to see this, folks. There are a few other places where it's referenced. There is no point of me reading that. The gist of it is given here. Barr thinks that any prosecution of Trump needs to stop. Unbelievable. Precedents after precedents after precedents kicked in the ass and rushed out of the way. But yet Barr has the audacity to ask everyone to adhere to precedents that a sitting president should not be indicted. Okay. Well, I know it's late, folks. Funny enough, hell, I'm wide awake right now. But be that as it may, we're going to go ahead and end this here. So I appreciate anyone who is taking the time to watch this right now. And if you weren't able to, obviously you should be able to catch this in replay. All right, so with that, all I have to say is find someone to tell somebody to show them what we've got going on right here. If you like this, hey, like it. If you enjoy it, share it. By all means, please let anyone know. But let's make sure that if this is something that you are liking, let everybody else know as well. All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you folks in another stream. Peace out.